It wasn't until I started to think about thoughts as literal like frequencies and started to sort of play with, you know, manipulating or like enhancing or diminishing different frequencies, aka different thoughts, that my life really started to turn out for me. And this is something that can sound super woo woo and it does sound super woo woo. And I thought so too until I started to see how it turned out for me in my life. And quantum physicists are now researching this like crazy. Different physicists are researching consciousness, right? What does it mean to have thoughts? How does that generate our reality? What is superposition? You know, how do thoughts create things? All of these things that have been discussed over years. Plato discussed this. You know, you hear Joe Dispenza now talking about this. Even Tony Robbins talks about change your state, and it all comes back to the concept, in my opinion, of frequencies. So, you know, I learned that I do have the ability to enhance or diminish a frequency, and a frequency is equal to like that of kind of a thought. So before I really knew how to do this or understood how to do this, I used to just kind of live in a state of just perpetual anxiety. I was so anxious for most of my life. Not most of my life, probably like since I was 16, you know, to like 23. And then from then on, I really struggled with anxiety. I felt lonely. I felt like no one really cared about me. I felt, you know, unimportant. I didn't feel like I made very little money. I didn't really have just the life that I wanted. I lived in my dad's basement 5 years ago, didn't make any money then, and anxiety, depression, eating disorder, all that kind of stuff. And once I started to actually practice this is when my life really turned around for me. And I started making these, you know, well into the six figures. I attracted the most amazing friends. The friendships I did have before that were kind of like riddled with drama a little bit, totally cleared themselves up. Ended anxiety, into depression, no meds. When I had been on, I think it's like Prozac for, I think it was a decade when I was like 20, I don't know, somewhere in my 20s. And did all of that. And it's just through practice. It was in large part through practicing what these frequencies are. So, you know, if we're to think about frequencies, how does it work? Like we live in a world where they're finding everything is consciousness. Everything. So this is all consciousness. Everything around us is kind of bundled into consciousness. And one of the ways that humans, they're finding, experience consciousness is through our thoughts. So we have kind of a spectrum of frequencies. So like here on the highest level is like joy, down on the lowest level is like shame and fear and jealousy and like really bad feeling thoughts. And there's literal like frequencies attached to each one of these thoughts. So for me, for so many years, I was in a lower state frequency. My thoughts were like anxious and depressed and kind of, I wouldn't say jealous. It was more like envious maybe of what other people had. So I was stuck on like a lower frequency thought. I used to wake up with anxiety just looping every single day. What I started to do was practice different feeling thoughts in the morning every single day. And this came in the form of like, you know, if you've ever been anxious, you know what it feels like to wake up in the morning and you're literally just bombarded with anxious thoughts. Like you don't get a second. People always say like, oh, just think of different thoughts. Like you don't get a second to think a different thought. You wake up and it's like, it's boom, it's there. It's exhausting. So I didn't have the ability at the time to think new thoughts. So what I would do, I would wake up purposely 2 hours before work every single day. And I would throw on a YouTube video, like something that would make me feel different feeling thoughts. And as a result of doing this, the thoughts that I was thinking were replaced by other people's thoughts, things that would just kind of like soothe me, you know, just like not put me in a fight or flight state, which is really common, I think, in today's society, given how much input we have. So I'd more or less like replace my thoughts with other better feeling thoughts that other people had because I didn't like have the ability to do it at the time. Then I'd get up and I'd walk around and I'd move around and I'd adjust myself. I'd stretch sometimes. Like every morning it was kind of a different thing, but I would move and get out of my space while I'm listening to this stuff. Then as the day would go on, not the day, as like the next 30 minutes to hour would go on, I would get to a place where you can kind of feel it, but like my mind would just relax. It was just at ease finally, compared to what it was when I would first wake up. And then I would go to a coffee shop and I would literally take out this thing as a notebook and I would write everything good that happened the day before. Literally everything good that happened, from the beginning to the middle to the end. And it was like little things, right? So things that were like, I woke up and I was warm in my bed and I had socks on and that was warm and cozy. And then I went to Starbucks to get coffee and the barista was so nice. We had a good conversation to then it was, I scootered to work and I had no problems, just got there quick, easy. Building is beautiful that I get to walk into. And I had a great exchange with my friend at the desk and literal little things like that I was not thinking about before. And as I was writing these things, it felt good to write them. It just was like reminding me of a good little thing that happened the day before. But I think what was key about this was that I would throw on music while I was writing. So usually it was like things that were non-lyrical, things that were kind of instrumental, but like good feeling songs, like good feeling music that I was listening to while I was writing this. I don't think we understand the power of music. I really don't. Like, music is frequencies too. If you want to know what mood you're in, pay attention to the music you're listening to. If you see people that are constantly listening to sad music all the time or breakup music, like they probably keep experiencing breakup sad music or breakup sad things and thoughts and all the time, because that's what they're thinking about. So I would plug in music that was high, uplifting, whatever it felt good to do in that day. Like, it's a day by day thing. So some days I'd put on EDM that was super uplifting because I had high energy. Some days I'd put on Enya. Some days I'd put on like something that was really, really light. And I would literally write everything good that happened yesterday, everything. And what happened as a result of this is I started to shift my internal frequency, my internal, you could call it like an antenna, that was what was bringing me my life. So this is kind of back to the frequencies things. What I've learned and what I'm experiencing all the time is that, thoughts are things. Thoughts are our perception of consciousness in part for humans. And what we think about is what we are, what we become. So for me, being in a constant looping state all the time of anxiety and thinking about my problems and obsessing over my problems and talking about my problems and trying to fix my problems kept me in the place of trying to deal with my problems. It wasn't until I shifted my attention and then started to actively work with thoughts in terms of frequencies to notice all of the good things that were happening in my life from the day before, like real life things that happened, is when I started to actually get more of that. So like they say, you get what you are. Well, because I was constantly thinking those anxious thoughts, I was getting more and more of those experiences that would make me anxious. When I shifted my focus and my attention to all of the really good things that did happen to me the day before, and I actually started to notice all of the good things, not just write about it, but I would write from a place of feeling and remembering how good that they were in that moment, or just taking a second to recognize, there's so many little things. Even this right now is beautiful, right? This is insane. What I'm in, this tree, this beautiful sunrise, the city behind me, it is gorgeous. I didn't have the capacity to see it before when I was in a lower frequency state. Now that I had done this, I call it the magic book, where I do this practice. Now that I've done this for so many years, and I've been doing this for 4 years, 5 years, every single morning, my mind, my ability to notice things goes more pretty directly to noticing all of these things. I'll just go on a walk and I'll be like, wow, that's a really pretty bird. Or wow, that's a really a pretty sunrise, or geez, this is it's a really warm day. Things, little inconsequential things have become really big, powerful, cool things. And that is an example of how over time, through practice of practicing good feeling thoughts, like essentially enhancing the frequency of all the good things that happened the day before, my mindset became equal to that. And then as a direct result from that, I'm telling you, everything in my life changed. I went from living in my dad's basement, living $0, having no income, to this company hires me as a sales director, a Fortune 500 company. They pay me $10,000 to move to the city I had already decided I wanted to go to, but didn't, it was expensive to move. I get to that city and immediately I meet my best friends, amazing people, some of the best people I'd wanted in my life for years. People that were like filling in the blanks kind of for things that I needed, The relationships that I had back home all fixed themselves. I created a YouTube channel where I get to talk to people like you. I had all of these amazing guests that I now get to interview, like industry leaders that I am getting to talk to. My team at work is amazing. My boss at work is amazing. And there was this apartment that was available, or that wasn't available, but it was my dream apartment that I had always wanted to live in. And I knew what it was like to live in it because I'd lived in it back home where I was originally from with my ex-boyfriend. And I just never thought it was possible for me to live in it. Well, it turns out I am apartment shopping in this new city that I got moved to by the company that hired me. There were no rooms available in this building, so I just was kind of like, oh, dang, it's not going to happen. I get a call after I already signed a lease somewhere else. I get a call a week later and they're like, hey, this room opened up if you want to come check it out. This guy's actually going to leave now, apparently pretty soon. I go check it out. Perfect. It is the best room in the entire building. The view is perfect. It's in the middle of exactly where I want to be. It's better than what I had initially wanted, and it just came to me. And so all these things really just fell into place, and I believe it's because I elevated my, for lack of a better word, frequency. I know it sounds kind of wooey and stupid to people that believe in this kind of stuff. It doesn't. But again, back to quantum and consciousness and what they're researching, this is truly what people are coming to find. Our intentions, our thoughts create our reality. What we think about, we become. Our frequency, our subconscious, our conscious, all of that kind of sums up our overall frequency. And then just like antennas, we attract what we are. So if you think about cell phones, right? If I'm to call you on my phone, I can only reach you if I call you on the exact same frequency that you are on. Same thing with a radio. If you are trying to listen to 93.3 on the radio and you're doing your best to tune into that and hear what's on the station, you have to tune into 93.3. Literally you have to tune into that station to be able to hear what that music is. It was the same thing with my thoughts. I was habitually, constantly rethinking my problems, looping the negative thoughts of my problems that I wasn't even aware or able to feel any of the good stuff that was happening to me every single day, all the little things. So the summation of all that, my thoughts became my overall frequency, and that's what I kept getting. Once I learned to practice all of these good feeling thoughts, and that's, I think, the thing that's so important is that it's not a gratitude list. It's not like a appreciation list. It's literally, I was putting myself back in yesterday, listening to music that made me feel good. I had been thinking about thoughts in terms of frequencies, aware of just enhancing the feeling really. And I was fully in that moment yesterday as I was writing, because when you think about writing, one of the beautiful things I think about writing is you can't think about more than what you're writing about. You really can only think one thought at a time. So one of the difficult things with anxiety is that you're constantly thinking multiple thoughts at once. When I learned to focus my thoughts on a piece of paper, I only was thinking that thought, and all of it was just swarming all of my senses with beautiful music. And I had already moved around that day and released some of that energy and walked around and listened to Abraham Hicks or Neville Goddard to make me think about things in terms of frequencies and remind me that I do have some element of, I wouldn't say control, but influence. And I was writing everything good that happened yesterday and feeling good. It was the feeling that I was practicing. And then the more you practice it, the more you become it. It's like going to the gym. The more you lift 20 pounds, the easier it gets. The easier you can go back to it. And then what came to me as a result, because I was naturally in that frequency, were things that matched that version, that frequency. So like, I don't even have drama in my life anymore. I don't even have issues with this kind of stuff. Like, there's nothing in my life that is equal to like what it was before, because I'm not the same person. Subconsciously, I elevated my frequency through practicing the good feeling thoughts. So anyways, let me know your thoughts on this. I have been talking about this a lot because I don't think that, what we're finding with these consciousness researchers and physicists and people who are truly diving into this is, obviously there's so much we don't know, but we, I think, as humans are so much more powerful than what we have been taught and told and sold. And this ability to practice frequencies and truly respect frequencies is being studied on a scientific level. If you're curious to learn more about this, I actually interviewed Thomas Campbell. He's a leading physicist. He was on Joe Rogan not that long ago, and we talk about consciousness and what he's researched over the last 40 years. I'm actually interviewing Dean Radin tonight, another leading physicist, about this, to unravel like, what is consciousness? How do thoughts create things? How does intention work with all of this? Like, how does feeling matter? So yes, it's me and my experience, and yes, it's worked. Doing the magic book works, and other people who are, top scientists are researching this. So if you're curious about wanting to get involved with this and wanting to do this with me, so I can kind of teach you my flow for how I learned to practice and elevate the frequency and really just shift my entire life, comment the word magic book below. I've been doing these kind of like live webinars where I've been walking people through how this works. Because honestly, if there's one thing that's changed my life more than, there's nothing that I guess that has changed my life more than this. Stop drinking, not drinking has been a huge part. Going carnivore, I'm a carnivore coach, like that's all helped me. But truly this has been the undercurrent of everything. And I'm compelled to want to share it. So yeah, comment magic book below. I'll leave those other interviews below if you want to see them. I'll leave an explanation a little bit more deep on the magic book as well below in the links and right here. And I'm going to go off to my day, go off to work. So I hope you're having a wonderful day. I hope you're happy. And I'll see you on the next one. See ya.